Good evening, everyone. Once again, you are all welcome to today's podcast. And I'm in the person of Gloria Boateng Jemfua. I'm going to be your moderator or your MC for today. So today we have amongst us our speakers. I think they have already joined. We have with us Dr. Blessing Baloyi. I'm sorry if I have not pronounced the word well or your name well. So she is the research analyst for Safety and Us, and she's also a lecturer at the University of Johannesburg. So I also welcome every other single person. We also have here the Director of Policy, Research and Legal for Ghana Internet Safety Foundation. He's in the person of Kwesi Mensah. And we also have with us Miss Abigail Edu Dako. She's a content and a product policy. She's also a trust and safety person, and also she's also someone who is also into responsible artificial intelligence. So this program is brought to you by Ghana Internet Safety Foundation and also Safety and Us Trust in Zimbabwe. So I'll not take much of your time. I welcome you all once again to today's program. Please, if I can be heard, sorry, can you kindly type Y or any letter that you can easily type in the chat box for me? If I can be heard, please kindly text a Y or any letter, any number. Okay, thank you very much for that thumbs up. So starting, we are going to kickstart with our first presenter. She's in the person. Oh, sorry. So we also have here with us the director for Safety and Us Trust in Zimbabwe. She's in the person of Miss Lucia. The other name, I'm not so sure. Miss Lucia Musvidu. So she has also joined us. Ma'am, we are so pleased and we acknowledge your presence here today with us. So we are going to kickstart, and the
Thank
first
you, Gloria.
person. Oh, you're welcome, Miss Lucia. Thank you. So the first person to take us through the topic, which is the digital battlefield, tackling misinformation and disinformation in the age of information warfare. We are going to take it from Dr. Blessing. As I mentioned earlier, she is the research analyst for Safety and Us, and she's also a lecturer at the University of Johannesburg. So, not taking much time, Dr. Blessing, please, you have the platform. Please, you have 20 minutes to give us your presentation. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, like what you have heard, my name is Blessing. So I'll be taking you through the presentation on the digital platform. So I need to share my slides with you guys. I won't take much in introducing myself. You've already heard about my background. So basically, let us go through the today's session as it is critical for us. May you please confirm if you can see my screen?
Dr. Blessing, please, can you speak a bit louder for us? Thank you.
All right, thank you. How is my voice projection now? Hello?
Hello.
How is my voice projection now?
Um, I think it is manageable. Please, if you
It's
can hear
manageable.
her well, kindly text a Y, any letter, or a thumbs up.
All right, may you please confirm if you can see my screen now? May I have maybe a thumbs up? All right. Okay, thank you so much. So we are going to be looking at the topic, the digital battlefield, tackling misinformation and disinformation in the age of information warfare. So I'm going to unpack on these concepts. But when we are talking about a warfare, we can think maybe of a conflict. situation where there may be opposing ideas. So you have to bear in mind that as I go through this presentation, we'll be talking about the conflict, but in terms of this digital battlefield, okay? So now the background of this session is based on the elections that we are going to have in Ghana this Saturday. So according to the Minister of Communication and Digitalization in Ghana, I won't try to read that name because I know I'm not going to read that name, okay? 70% of online misinformation and disinformation is spread by only 10% of the people using social media accounts. So from that statistics, we can see how media can easily be false misrepresented online. Just only 10% can spread about 70% of the what of the information. So now that we have the elections, we need to know about the misinformation and disinformation because this may mislead the general public. So the explanation for us to understand or to have a better understanding of what misinformation is, it is simply the incorrect or misleading information, and disinformation is deliberate or misleading information. These two concepts, they sound the same, but they are slightly different in the sense that in misinforming, there is no intention maybe to harm anyone, but the information can be spread. But in disinformation, there is an intent to harm at the receiving end. So here is just a little characteristics to differentiate between the two. Misinformation is the incorrect or misleading information. Information intended to deceive. It intends to deceive but not to harm anyone. And this, there is false information which is spreading. And also on this information, we are looking at the deliberate information, false information which is spread. This include hoaxes, malicious content, and propaganda. When we're talking about hoaxes, we are talking about viral alerts that can spread information falsely. And when we're talking the issue of propaganda, it is the information that maybe have got bias or maybe towards a certain political party now that we are leading to the what? To the presidential and parliamentary elections. So now the causes now, I was looking and I was analyzing the data as I was reading about the situation in Ghana for now. I discovered that several political media companies in Ghana are owned by politicians. A third of them, either they are owned by the politicians or people who are affiliated to the politics, and some of them are state-owned, which means that there's likely to be that propaganda, that bias of the information that is going to be spread, especially on the internet. We also have the rise of artificial intelligence, which has worsened the new forms of misinformation and disinformation, increase in artificial production in data modification. We also have the problem of AI-generated visual audios, etc. And we also have the other causes of sock puppet. When we're talking of a sock puppet, we are saying that there are people who may conceal their identity. They misrepresent, like maybe it is the president of an opposition party who said this, but that's the sock puppet. They are concealing their identity to spread false information. And also when we are looking at deep fakes, we are looking at maybe things like audios, which are IA generated. They are somehow mischanged. They're somehow changed. They are transmitted through the social platforms like YouTube, Telegram, where false information trends. And in most cases, it targets political actors and as well as the election processes. So we can say that there's the information that can circulate towards maybe the WhatsApp that the president is saying this, or the president of the ruling party is saying this. So these are the things that we need to take cognizance of. All right, so the impact of misinformation and disinformation on children and the general public. Remember, Safety and Us Trust will also deal with the well-being of children, especially the online safety. So I felt like we need to also include children in this presentation. I know that the legal year or age of voting in Ghana is 18, but We know that these children, they are the future or are the generation of tomorrow. So they need to be taught these things so that when it comes that time when they're adults, they are able to what? To know these things like how do I verify certain information, something like that. So this have got an impact on the children and general public, such as emotional distress, stress, anxiety, and trauma. And how can we help? Because uh, maybe from the perspective as a lecturer, we always say that if there is a problem, how best can you help? So we are saying that how do we help children in terms for them to know about information, misinformation, and disinformation? We need to educate them at a younger age because these are the citizens who vote when they turn 18. Then we need to provide a safety and trustworthy environment for our children. Accurate information and updates should also be provided. We need to encourage verification of information through credible sources, and we need to foster resilience and emotional well-being of our children and also the general public at large. We need to encourage fact-checking and media literacy. Fact-checking, they have to consult different sources. For example, you see an information on the internet, you need to verify authentic sources. Like, is this source correct? Is it true? Like, for example, if you go on Wikipedia, it can relay information which is not true. So in this, we are now encouraging the general public that they need to use what? Authentic websites that can be traced. Okay. So now, impact of the misinformation and disinformation on election. This can smear an opponent for political gain. So in other words, it can be good and it can also be bad. Remember, I talked about the warfare, which is a conflict. So it might be good for some other people, but it can also be bad in terms of the election. It can damage trust in the election system. Please allow me to give an example, maybe from my home country. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. There was this time when we had our presidential election, and by that time I was a primary school teacher, and we were those people who were administering the elections. People were circulating rumors like, yeah, the ballot paper that you are using, if you put an X on the ruling party, that later on, after 24 hours, that X is going to change and it is going to go to the opposing party. So people were panicking. You understand what I'm saying? So these are some of the impacts of what you call misinformation and disinformation, because it was just a rumor which was spreading, but it was spreading towards via the WhatsApp. So it can also mobilize or suppress voter participation. Some people said, all right, I've heard that if you put an X maybe to the opposition party, that X is going to the ruling party. So what's the point of voting? So it can suppress that voter participation. And there are also other factors that we need to take cognizance of, that, such as the threat of political economy, which may lead to the battlefield, which is the topic of this seminar, and which targets the political actors. And it can now reduce the credibility of the ideal media organization, even though they are authentic. Remember, I said that some of them, they are owned by the state, some of them are owned by people who are affiliated to politics. So some people may feel like, this thing, why should I go and vote? Because there's this information which is spreading. So it is a very critical issue that we need to know. So what do we do when citizens have been exposed? And all these are centered on what? On education. We need to educate our young people. We need to educate our older people. We need to educate everyone in Ghana. We have open discussions. We do that critical analysis, like, okay, there's this information which is circulating. Maybe in those clubs, in groups, people can talk about it. How can we verify that this is correct? Something like that. We need to teach our children critical skills, like they should not just believe everything that they see on the internet. And we also need to teach media literacy. Media literacy is just that they need to have that ability to access media, to access information, and also evaluate. Is it true or is it not true? If they find that the information is true, what action then are they supposed to take? And also the issue of online safety. Critical thinking again is also coming in. We need the children the community, the children to promote critical thinking so that they are safe whilst browsing on the internet. Then I also have recommendations for parents, for children, because I understand that in Ghana, we all have those people in different ecosystems. We have the parents, we have the learner, we have the education system. They all have a critical role to play. So we are saying that for parents, I can recommend that they have to maybe limit the exposure, because there are some information that is coming, false information that is coming in. So they should somehow maybe monitor the way they are what their children explore in the internet on the internet. We can also encourage our children to engage in offline activities. Yes, as much as online is okay, you can see that it hindered that interaction amongst our children. Like everyone is always busy either what on their phone. Like what is happening here in my house, everyone is busy on their phone. There's no what interaction. So there should be what interaction. And as parents, we should teach our learners grounding techniques. There should be demarcations, like you can do this and you cannot do this. And checking, I've talked about this. And you also need to teach them teaching coping skills. There is an information that have spread, false information that have spread. So how do you what cope that? And you can keep that through what, through open communication. So you can find that in doing this, we can try to what, to provide solutions. And the other solutions that I have for the parents, we have to build resilience, supportive environment, set boundaries. I'm looking at my time. I'm almost there. Regular check-in, self-reflection, and autonomy. As much as we may guide our learners, autonomy means that we also have to allow our learners, our children, maybe to interact on their own. That's what, that's autonomy. So now, in terms of the children, I recommend that they should have the verification sources, the fact checker. Some other countries like our Western world, they have websites like they first check the information. Is this information correct? There are websites that they can check. The fact checker website that they can check, and then they can self-reflect. So okay, if this information is false, then how best can I go about? Then educators, they also have a critical role to play in this. They need to integrate media literacy in the curriculum. So if I was reading, when I was understanding, I was researching on this topic. I also discovered that in 2020 there were elections again that were held in Ghana, and there was this issue of misinformation and disinformation. But it means that there's somewhere there is a gap which need to be filled. So I think this gap can be safely filled by the educators. They need to teach the learners, integrate media literacy into the curriculum, promote critical thinking. The fact checkers, I've talked about it, regular feedback and guidance, philosophical debates. So like in the classroom situation, there is a misinformation which is spreading maybe about a certain political party. Then they talk about it in a class. So it can promote that critical thinking that I've talked about it. We have case studies like in situation like this, how best can we solve collaboratively so that one can help the what our learners in the education system in Ghana. Then recommendation for citizens in Ghana as a whole. There was a study which was done in 2023. I will try to read those words. I hope I will be correct. Achonga Kaba Code in 2023. That researcher established that there is need for media organization in Ghana to seek services for the first checkers websites. So which means that there is limitation of those fact checkers websites. So there is need for cross-checking information that we get. We also need to verify, is this correct? So we need to educate our citizens of Ghana that before panicking or about information about the lecture, they need to verify, is this correct? So we need to intensify the education on identification of fake news. So to conclude this presentation, I can say that real-world applications are needed, especially in the upcoming elections. All the people in Ghana should be educated that not everything online is true. We need to verify. There is information that is online, but we need to conclude, to verify, is this true? They also need to be cautious of strange and unfamiliar websites, links, and emails. Remember, I talked about hoaxes later on. They need to be familiarized about this, but also this goes back to the issue of media literacy. If you are not media literate, you are prone to be what? To be a victim to what? To misinformation and disinformation. So the general public should not believe everything seen or heard on the internet. And they also need to ask questions, seek clarification where they do not understand from knowledgeable people in the society. So that's what I can conclude by saying. So thank you for taking time to be in this presentation. I think I was good in managing time because I started at 6 past and now it's 26 past. So my 20 minutes is up. Thank you so much. Over to you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for this wonderful insight that has been shared with us. So I believe Miss Abigail Edudako is also with us. Before we proceed to take questions for Miss Blessing, we also want to know your thoughts about what has been given by Miss Dr. Blessing. Miss Abigail, what are your thoughts about what Dr. Blessing has just shared with us before we proceed to take some questions?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Yeah, this was a very comprehensive presentation, Dr. Blesson. Really, really found it very insightful. I think that maybe the very few things that I can also add to here. Oh, and sorry, just to introduce myself. So my name is Abigail. Excuse me. I like to describe myself as a digital safety and digital rights professional who's passionate about bridging like the digital safety divide. I My work is mostly focused on online safety, responsible AI, digital rights and safety. And I do a lot of things, but I currently lead all of the online safety work at the Wikimedia Foundation. And I also consult for a nonprofit called Tech Global Institute, where we mostly focus on achieving just digital equity in the global south. So disinformation and misinformation is is an issue area that I tackle a lot in my work on a regular and a daily basis. So I'm very excited that we're actually having this space to have this conversation, especially against the context of like the Ghana elections that's coming up soon, that's barely a week away. I think that maybe some other things that I can add to this is highlighting how like disinfo from my experience and my work in this space, how disinformation manifests on in our world and especially in our countries within Africa and as particularly in Ghana. I think that mostly it really shows up on like social media platforms. I think especially like WhatsApp, for example, during like I think like the COVID season, we did see a lot of information like being really shared and spread, especially particularly on WhatsApp, like people using WhatsApp as a tool to spread disinformation and cause like fear and panic. We all have those like WhatsApp groups or like what we say, our like aunties who are always like sharing things to warn us or like share information. And I think as much as sometimes that could be helpful, that is also has been proven as a tool that can easily be used to spread disinformation. And I like that Dr. Blesson actually also really differentiated between the difference between disinformation and misinformation. Where for disinformation, there is really the deliberate intent, where misinformation, it normally is the person really isn't normally sharing it deliberately, but sometimes it's just they see this and then they actually do believe that maybe that information is true and then they also spread it around. So misinformation actually relies on disinformation in a way, because sometimes the bad actor or somebody will sit there and create like a video, a false video, a false audio, or even a false story, and then they deliberately like put that out there, but then other people will see it and then they spread it. So a lot of people innocently spread misinformation, whereas like disinformation is very deliberate. I think some of the other ways that it manifests in our society is also, through the media. Like we have our TV or radio stations, and even now, I think we also have like social bloggers and social media bloggers and influencers who sometimes, will spread some kind of polarizing content or sensational news just to get like clickbait or traffic. And while knowing that, like it's not really, or exaggerating like the headlines or the titles, for example, or even if it's like could be like a half truth, but trying to present it as like a whole truth, for example. And I think now with AI, the possibilities of disinformation is endless. It's because AI really has the ability to create like deep fakes, for synthetic media that can actually look real, that is. And we've seen examples of how, like, deepfake videos have been used during like Kenya and Nigeria elections, for example. In Ghana, actually, there was recently an article, and let me just find it and share it, which talked about the use of AI bots, specifically on X, that is used to spread disinformation by the incumbent, which is, I think, it's been used by the incumbent political party in power currently. So I just wanted to bring this up to show that this is happening. AI, as much as we are still grappling with like the risks and the challenges and the impacts and the effects of AI, we are already using it, and it's already impacting like our society and our world, and especially in Africa. There's so many use cases and examples of how it's been used, especially in elections, for example. And that's one of the examples that have been flagged that has been used in the Ghana elections, for example. And then there's also sometimes like very targeted disinformation, where I think this is especially like in the US, for example, this is very common, where some bad actors will try to share like a specific video, will target a specific group, whether it's like Latinos or young people or specific demographic or ethnic group or religious group, which is very targeted, just to try to like change your opinion, or it could be just like very divisive or polarizing content to get them incites like anger or hatred or violence or something. So yeah, those are some of the ways that I, at least in my work, I've seen like disinformation manifest. Some of the major risks that that disinformation kind of, I think Dr. Blessing really spoke a lot to, like especially on children. But I think just generally for me, I always think about even like what is the worst case scenario, which could be death. Because, for example, like health disinformation could cause somebody to take the wrong medication or just like not do anything. During COVID, there was a lot of disinformation around like the what the vaccine does to you, or like people recommending like you drink like even is a cleaning detergent that could get rid of it, or like there was just a lot of information that was going around that some of them were scientifically like debunked by doctors and specialists in the space. And I think that sometimes these are some of the ways that disinformation can actually cause a physical damage to a person. Or there have been examples of how deep fakes, for example, where deep fakes of like a very nude picture or image or manipulated image, because it's not real, or video even that looks so real, which is one of really the dangers of AI, that can that I think there's been examples. I forget whether it's Kenya or Uganda, where it was used. There was like a woman member of parliament that was actually involved, and I feel like these kind of things can really cause a lot of damage, to reputational damage, and can actually cause somebody to be depressed or commit suicide, or So like I think the offline harms and the consequences of some of this disinformation can be very damaging and very disturbing. And there could, psychological impacts. When, for example, if you hear like fake news of a potential terrorist attack in your neighborhood, for example, you're in a car and you're like, oh, something's going, it could cause a lot of like fear and panic, or security threats, for example, that are fake news could cause like a lot of it could incite a lot of violence and a lot of unrest and emotions, which could be very damaging. We've seen how, for the example that I use, how it can be used to manipulate like government policies or elections. It also could undermine safety, like, some of the examples that I've highlighted already. It could also really be used to undermine trust in institutions such as the media and the government. And I think right now that's what we've been seeing a lot of, where there's a lot of, could be a lot of disinformation targeted at, like, the media or government and state institutions that could really make it difficult for citizens or the public to trust government. It could also create a lot of polarization and division, where especially, like what I talked about earlier about like the targeted disinformation, where especially when it's done against like ethnic lines or religious groups, or it could create a lot of division where people could incite a lot of different emotions among them, where they feel a certain way about these type of people, which normally could be the end goal of the original person behind like spreading the disinformation. And then some of the ways that I think finally that we can mitigate disinformation, I think Dr. Blessing spoke to a lot of them. Some other additions, things that I'll add, especially maybe taking it from like the different stakeholder angles. I think like the media has a really strong role here, because we're talking about information here, and often the media is like one of the main sources of information, even because what we often share on social media and everything normally comes from the media. And I think that, the media could do a lot of fact checking. They could invest in fact checking efforts before sharing news, and not rushing to be the first media house to like break the news, which is often what happens, and makes it, and then people do not fact check properly because they want to quickly break the news. And also ensuring that, news are from credible sources and actually experts in the field, if it's health, if it's and about the environment or election, like people who are experts in those areas to actually speak to the issue. And then another area that I think the media could also mitigate this is by sharing counter narratives to counter the spread of disinformation. For example, if there's a fake news about something that is spreading, the media can really amplify the actual accurate news about that same thing. That could also, help like to serve as a counter narrative to the fake news. I think civil society groups, could anti-disinformation campaigns, like digital literacy campaigns, like I think Dr. Blessing mentioned that already. And one thing that I would add is also like holding online platforms accountable. We've seen that some of the major ways that disinformation is used, spreads quickly, are often on online platforms, social media platforms, specifically. And I think that as much as I think a lot of platforms would have policies against this kind of things, and some are trying to really take efforts to like combat them, others do not. And I think like these are some of the ways that the government and civil society groups can actually hold some of these online platforms accountable, to ensure that they're implementing the right controls and policies, and investing in the right tools to actually mitigate the spread of disinformation, and not rather amplifying them again for clickbait or for just people attention, and people staying on or getting traffic to like their platforms, for example. And then I think on the individual level, I think the basic things, I actually, in terms of, I think I also want to flag some of the maybe the specific ways that you can detect as, as an individual, when you see something on social media. I think Dr. Blessing also spoke to this. I think the first thing is really to, just pause, especially when it's a very sensational news. It's like trying to evoke some kind of emotion, or emotional manipulation, or trying to evoke some kind of intense emotions, such as shock, anger, or surprise. Those are normally like that kind of content kind of have those kind of headlines and attributes to them, and that's the way to like really identify them. I think one, you also should check if it's coming from a credible or reputable source. In Ghana, I think we have a lot of media houses. I think credibility is also something that is really hard in a way, because it's sometimes it's not very objective, and different people have different reasons why they deem other media houses credible, and we're not going to go into that today. But I think that checking that is from a credible source. And I think sometimes there are very easy ways to get that. It's like, especially for example, if you're in Ghana and it's from a media house that you don't even know of or you've never heard of. That's, for me, that immediately is a red flag and something to be aware of. Um, what are the other things? I think like normally these kind of content could be very opinion based and not very fact based. Like there are no sources even in maybe the articles. You also have to check for image or video manipulation. There's one tool that is quite effective again. That's just like doing Google reverse check where you can upload that video or image and search that on Google via like their image icon on the search tab. And I think that is a way to like check to see if this is valid or not. But that's just one of the ways that you can do it. I don't think it's sometimes there could be false positives or false negatives. And then sometimes a lot of these contents also will attack like a person's character reputation, or also you should check for like grammar or spelling, because a lot of them are often maybe hastily put together or not done, especially like content from AI bots, for example, on social media. The spelling will be a bit off, the grammar will be a bit off, even their bios or their profile. So there are some of these subtle ways that you can also check to be sure. And I think one last thing is checking the publication date, because one other type of disinformation is often using like an image or a video from a past incident, which may be something from like 5 years ago, to try and bring it, share it now as if it's happening currently, especially if it's maybe from elections that happened the last 4 years, and then sharing it now as if this is happening right now. That's also another form of disinformation. So it's not necessarily that is false or that is a false image or picture or video, but it's just that it's used out of context. And that also can, if it's like an image of people like trying to fight or trying to like carry ballot boxes or whatever, and then they share it now from that, maybe that was an image from last year and they share it now, that is something that can easily incite like fear of violence and cause people to like maybe go out there and get rowdy and all of that. So yeah, I think those are the main things that I'll say. But ultimately, I think it's important as individuals, just always pause, verify, check. If you're not sure, don't be another carrier of misinformation. Don't let them use you to facilitate their disinformation. I think it is important to like just do that verification. And if you're not sure, just don't share it. Like you should just make sure you're sure before you also kind of spread that news, even if it's on on WhatsApp or on Facebook or other social media platforms. Okay, so I think that's everything I think I'll add to this. So I'll hand it over back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So right now we are going to take some questions for Dr. Blessing to handle, and if Miss Abigail also wants to step in, that would be awesome. So please, I think we have one question in the chat box. If you can't unmute and talk, you just type it. I'll read it out for you. So the first question, so it's from Mr. Clement Kwachi. He says, please, now that this election is close, how can we educate the citizens on it in this short time? So to Dr. Blessing and Miss Abigail, someone is asking, the period is short. How can this education be done in such a short period where we are heading towards the polls?
I can take this first. I think that for me, to be honest, like if we are just talking about, digital literacy or like public awareness about some of these issues, it really starts with you and your friends and your family. I've had situations where, always having conversations with my mom about like, this is not, don't share this is not right. And I think it starts from there, right? Like even talking to your friends about this, you've come to this session, like you spreading the word, telling your friends about, like what you found insightful about this, and like how some of the things that we've shared here or discussed here. I see all of those things as like good first steps, within our family. Like we're all in WhatsApp groups where people are always like sharing things here and there all over the place. And I think all of those places are a good place to start from. I would also say that some of the other ways, that we can do create more public awareness by this is also through the media. I don't know if there's anybody from a media house here, but I think it's important for this discussion that we're having here, it could also be a discussion on actually like on a radio station or a TV or something. So that's also another way describing in very simple terms, like how disinformation spreads, what are some of the tactics they use, and also how to like mitigate that. And oh, someone's okay. So yeah, I think the media is also like a really powerful tool here as a way to spread awareness. We're barely a week away from the election, but if you have any connections to a media house, for example, that's also a good way to like, do that. Both like, print media or even TV or radio and all of that. But yeah, that's what I'll say to this question, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Miss Abigail. So I think we have Dr. Blessing with us again. Okay. So Dr. Blessing, someone asked that the time for voting or the date for voting is very near. So how can this education be done in such a short period? Dr. Blessing, what is your answer to this?
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, I understand that we have a limited time, considering that we are going to have the elections on Saturday. But now we are talking the use of the internet. We are going to use that same internet. Remember, internet is not all that bad. Okay. So instead of saying that, all right, everything on the internet is bad, but you can use the internet for the good. We educate the people via YouTube, via Telegram, via Facebook, all those social media platforms, so we can reach every corner of Ghana because the internet is a powerful tool to spread information. So now we are not spreading the good. We are not having that warfare like there is a conflict. No, no. We are not preaching the good. Like we need to verify the information that you are going to come across. Now that we are prior to the election, something like that. So we can also make use of that same internet to spread the information to educate the people, especially those young adults, like from those from 20 to 30 years. They socialize most of the time on Facebook, on Telegram. We use those platforms so that they can get the information they can get the message behind. I hope the person who asked is answered. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Blessing. Thank you so much, Miss Abigail. Mr. Clemens, please, have you been answered? You can just text in the chat box, or you can just unmute if your place is silent. Okay, so thank you so much.
Gloria.
Okay, Miss Lucia,
Gloria.
you can go on.
Yes, I also wanted to contribute on that one. Apart from those two that have been mentioned, I also feel that as Ghana Internet Society Foundation, you can actually, yeah, I don't know, someone has not muted himself or herself. I was saying, as your organization, I'm also thinking that within this specific short time that you have, you can actually run a campaign. Maybe it's a 3-day campaign, maybe it's a 4-day campaign, where you're just informing the people, the general public, about the importance of fact checking. So you can run this campaign on social media platforms. So I'm thinking it's also another powerful. You can actually run it well before, or you can actually choose to run it probably for a month. Whatever that you are hearing, you need to fact check, you need to verify, you need that kind of thing. That's my input there. Thank you.
Hello? Hello,
Yes,
hello,
please.
Gloria.
Yes, please. Please go on.
Yes, so to the point that Lucia just talked about. So for our organization, if you check our social media platforms, we've been running a campaign on misinformation and disinformation during the electoral period. So in sharing good information about the need to fact check, the need to verify information, particularly concerning the upcoming elections. And so we've already been doing that. And our participant, Clement, who asked this question, can quickly go to all of our social media platforms and get the credible information and share also on his social media platform so that a lot more people can be educated. Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lawyer Kwesinyako. Okay, so Mr. Clement, I believe you have been answered now. Thank you so much, Miss Lucia. Thank you, Dr. Blessing. Thank you, Miss Abigail. So we are going to take our next presentation. So we are going to do it back and forth as we have done with Dr. Blessing's presentation as well. So next on the list, we have with us Lawyer Kwesi Nyakun, and he is a part of this foundation. He clearly stated that we've been running this thing to educate people about misinformation, disinformation, and any other thing concerning elections. So I think I have posted in the chat box the various social media handles. You can quickly check. You'll see all these things that he just mentioned there. So we have with us Kwesi Mensah-Nyakun. He's the Director of Policy, Research and Legal for Ghana Internet Safety Foundation. So he's also going to take us through the topic, which is the digital battlefield, tackling misinformation and disinformation in the age of information warfare. So Lawyer Kwesi Nyakun, please, you have the platform, 20 minutes. Then we do the same as we did with Dr. Blessing's presentation. Thank you.
All right, Gloria, thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
good evening to, I don't know if it's good evening all around, but good evening to everybody, our participants and our cherished facilitators for this session. So we are grateful that you joined us. And at Ghana Internet Safety Foundation, we are interested in educating people because the area of cybersecurity is very wide. And so it's important that from time to time, we educate ourselves. We are always learning. As digital safety advocates, we are always learning. As we engage with wonderful people like you, we are always learning. So I'll move on to the topic. And this session, my presentation will mostly be centered around the upcoming elections, because that is what is at stake for a democracy like ours. Elections is the ultimate test of the survival of our democracy. And so when we talk about misinformation and disinformation, I would look at it within the West African subcontext and then eventually zoom into our Ghanaian context and then offer some measures that we can put in place to deal with this menace. So to start off with, this issue of misinformation and disinformation is a real challenge affecting many African societies, and for some time now it's been disrupting our social, our political, and our economic lifestyles. Other speakers, Dr. Blessing and Abigail, have been so kind to help us understand what misinformation and disinformation are about. But what I want to add is that disinformation is often characterized by the deliberate creation and distribution of false information to deceive and manipulate public opinion. And this is the crust of the matter, particularly in an electoral period. Okay. Hello? Okay. So I think I was muted. So as I was saying, the attempts to deliberately create and distribute false information to deceive and manipulate public opinion is the real danger for our upcoming elections. And so people are doing this to get some political gain or to disrupt society. And these issues have been with us for a very long time. You know, during the colonial period, information dissemination was tightly controlled by the colonial powers. And so it ended up creating certain channels that were meant to undermine dominant narratives or support certain political struggles. And so we still have that legacy persisting today, where there are so many channels in every African society. There are so many channels where people get their information from, and these are some of the mechanisms. My respected speakers have already mentioned social media platforms, and in Africa, we realize that people often have limited access to reliable information sources. And so for somebody like me, I dominantly rely on social media as my primary news source. I go on Twitter or Facebook or just to find out what is going on. I don't turn on the radio. I don't watch television for my source of news. So it makes us susceptible to misinformation due to the alarming surge in disinformation campaigns on social media. And one thing I would like to highlight is that misinformation and disinformation are tightly linked, as our speakers explained. So I'm misinforming people when I don't know that what I'm sharing with them is false. But I'm disinforming people when I deliberately know that what I'm sharing is meant to deceive people. So that if someone is listening to us right now, thinking that I am a credible source of information, but unknowing to them, I am sharing false information to manipulate an opinion, then they will also share it and it will be misinforming other people. So these two issues are directly linked. That's why usually we discuss the two of them together. Unlike traditional news outlets, social media platforms often lack rigorous editorial standards. So once a false information is shared, the dissemination is widespread. And we know how these social media algorithms prioritize engagement over verifying, information. So they prioritize promoting sensational content to boost their reach. And there's something that oftentimes these platforms also can create some echo chambers where users are exposed to predominantly information that aligns with their pre-existing beliefs. And this environment can seriously amplify false narratives. Then there's, the cultural aspect of or cultural mechanisms of spreading false information. Usually, we will in a typical African society, we rely on family, friends, local community leaders for information, and there's this historical mistrust of official channels and institutions. So these networks may not always necessarily verify the accuracy of the information they share, and certain cultural beliefs significantly influence the spread of unverified information. And we saw this clearly during the Ebola outbreak, where rumors about health crisis were rampant in countries like in Mali and Senegal, and there was widespread and misguided preventive measures across board. Then we look at the socio-political aspects. Political instability, ethnic tensions characterize many of our societies, and so they provide fertile grounds for disinformation. And so political actors mischievously tend to create and disseminate such information to manipulate public opinion and discredit their opponents. And clearly for Ghana, that is what we are heading towards. We've seen certain incidents of people trying to share information that will disadvantage their political opponents, but in the bigger scope, they tend to really manipulate public opinion. And then we see, I think one of our speakers talked about the use of bots. And this is something that many political actors are using, coordinated campaigns, which are promoted with fake accounts and bots, particularly on X. And we've seen many of such issues. I would touch on just some 2 or 3 case studies in within the sub-region, and I will start with Senegal. During the 2019 presidential elections in Senegal, there was widespread circulation of false information about candidates and voting procedures, and the main culprits for the main platforms where these information were shared was Facebook and WhatsApp, and there were some interventions in Senegal. There was a Pan-African network of cyber activists called Affectivists, and they were highlighting the role of fake news in shaping the political discourse in Senegal. I'll move on to La Côte d'Ivoire, which is just a neighboring country to Ghana. For Côte d'Ivoire, according to the National Democratic Institute, there was significant increase in campaigns related to false accusations of electoral fraud and gender-based insults directed at female politicians during the lead up to the October 2020 presidential elections. Also, the COVID-19 pandemic provided fertile grounds for anti-vaccine and false information about the virus on WhatsApp and Telegram, and which really complicated public health efforts at curbing the spread of the pandemic. Then in Burkina Faso, we witnessed how both political groups and armed factions use this information to destabilize the region, according to the Africa Center for Strategic Studies. And in Burkina Faso, there's a platform called Faso Check, as in Burkina Faso Check. It's a platform that we can all check, launched by local journalists, which aims to fact check news stories and educate the public on identifying false information. Because of my time, I would move on to the consequences, the impact of misinformation and disinformation in our societies. First of all, socially, we see how these problems undermine social cohesion, and it creates distrust among communities. I will go back to La Côte d'Ivoire, where false information about election outcomes led to violent clashes in 2020, resulting in over 85 deaths and hundreds of injuries. And for us in Ghana, we saw some of the effect of some of these things. Then politically, disinformation is often used as a tool for political manipulation. In Burkina Faso, we saw during their 2020 elections, there was a target, aimed at discrediting political opponents and influencing voter behavior. And according to the National Democratic Institute, 30% of the electoral-related content on social media was identified as false and misleading. In Ghana, I think not so long ago, we had some people sitting on radio who are not officials of the Electoral Commission giving false information about the upcoming polls, and the police intervened. They've been arrested, and investigations are ongoing. Then I will come to what are some of the measures we can put in place to combat misinformation and disinformation. And the first one, which some of our speakers have already highlighted, is enhancing our digital literacy. Because if we don't educate people, we cannot combat misinformation. And so we have to truly, as governments, as individuals, as educational institutions, as civil society organizations, we need to incorporate digital literacy in everything that we do. So Dr. Blessing talked about curriculum in schools. For us at GISF, we are always coming up with programs where we can educate people. And recently, not long ago, we engaged the Ghana police, to train and educate some law enforcement agencies in best practices to investigating cyber criminal activities, as well as ensuring that their investigations can lead to successful prosecution of their cases. We also see that one other example in Mali, the government has collaborated with international organizations such as the USAID and UNESCO to launch digital literacy campaigns reaching over 200,000 people in 2023. Then the next aspect will be the need to strengthen content moderation. Social media platforms must improve their content moderation. It's not that people can just share whatever. There should be some responsibility on their part to moderate the content, and particularly in local languages and in our local dialects. That level of moderation has to be ensured. And then we can put in place some automated systems, some AI-driven tools to help identify and flag false information. I think for those of us who are on X, we see that when someone shares something which is not accurate, there's a comment right under the post to tell you that maybe this picture has been manipulated or this information is false. So some of these interventions are needed. And there's the need for partnerships between tech companies and local organizations. For us as GISF, we work with some international organizations and partners to really enhance the effectiveness of some of these measures. Then, for me as a lawyer, I'll be very much interested in implementing legal and regulatory frameworks which are robust and essential for holding perpetrators of disinformation accountable. Governments should develop and enforce laws that address the creation and disinformation of false information. In Ghana, we have the Cybersecurity Act, and it criminalizes a whole lot of acts which the law deems as cyber criminal activities. And one of them that we often see is leaking of nude images and videos of people. It is criminalized in our jurisdiction. And so if anybody is hiding behind their screens thinking they can share nude pictures of other people, it is criminalized. And it comes with heavy punishments. You know, the Cybersecurity Act was enacted in 2020 to deal with some of these issues. In terms of legislation, there is that other aspect where some criticize some of these laws as an attempt to silence the media or criminalize criticism of the government. And there's a legitimate issue where there's a risk of abuse, okay, against freedom of expression and democratic debate. And so, and we see some governments who are not interested in, who are not interested in even moderating. They just block the internet. Okay, as we saw during the legislative elections in Benin in 2019, the government just shut down the internet. They don't want any trouble. So the legal and regulatory frameworks are needed. You know, in Burkina Faso, the government engaged in digital modernization of the country, where they created and implemented two strategies. You know, the first was the development of a digital economy, 2018 to 2027, and a national cybersecurity strategy. Then there's also the issue of utilizing fact-checking initiatives, because in a time like our upcoming elections, we need to fact-check. In Ghana, there's the Ghana fact-check GH. At Ghana Internet Safety Foundation also, we have our helplines where if you come across any information that you doubt the credibility, you can contact, and then we would make sure that we get you the accurate information. So fact-checking initiatives play a vital role in verifying information and debunking false narratives. And in our upcoming elections, this is critical. I already mentioned in Cote d'Ivoire, the fact-checking platform Les Observateurs, Faso Check are doing amazing work. You can Google them and check out what they are doing. So to round up, I would say that we need peace during these elections. Ghana has always been commended for peaceful elections. And this year as well, December 7th, we are advocating for peace and tackling misinformation and disinformation is one of the ways where we can ensure that after the polls, peace will reign. And so there's the need to have some of this international collaboration discussions to enhance information literacy, to contribute to the education of social media users, and let us all understand that there are a lot of harmful effects of electoral disinformation, particularly in a democratic society, because the ultimate test of any democracy, the survival of a democracy, it's the credibility of its electoral process. And if we do not take a critical look at how information is disseminated, then we'll find ourselves in trouble. And so government should consider punitive measures, especially to protect women in politics, who could be the target of disinformation campaigns and AI videos or all kinds of funny stuff that's from now till December 7th. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of people targeted, on social media platforms. Then, as I already mentioned, the need for social media platforms to improve the content moderation, particularly in local languages. In Ghana, we are blessed with a lot of local dialects, but most of our social media platforms, are in English. And so I would seriously advocate for that. And certainly, finally, the need for all of us to collaborate, to know what is happening in Zimbabwe, to know what is happening in South Africa, to know what is happening in Nigeria, and then we can share ideas on how to make our societies safe, how to make the internet safe for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lawyer Kwesi. Thank you for the insight you have given us and some of the highlights that you have given us on this. Okay, so before we take our questions, Ray, you can hold on. Before we take our questions, please, I would like to know the thoughts of what has been presented by Lawyer Kwesi Nyarko from Miss Abigail Edudako and Dr. Blessing. So, Miss Abby, you can take the lead then. If Dr. Blessing also wants to add up anything, we also take that. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no, I think you've said it all. I don't have any additions, honestly. I agree. I think it's there's common thread in everything that we've all discussed here. So yeah, 100% agree with everything.
All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Blessing, you have anything to add to this before we take our questions?
Not much, but I just want to comment that was just a comprehensive presentation and I really enjoyed listening to it, maybe from a legal perspective. Thank you so much, Zenda. Firstly, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Blessing. It's a pleasure.
Okay. So now we are going to take some questions. Ray, are you still there? Please, if you cannot unmute yourself, if you don't have a background that I think can facilitate or can help us to all be heard well, you can just type it in the text box. I'll read it out. I think there's a question. Okay, so the person says, please, is there any punishment for those who share fake news? Lawyer, is there any punishment for those who share fake news?
So yes, certainly there's punishment, usually in times of elections, people share information that creates panic in our societies. And so creating panic and disturbing public order is an offense. The information you are sharing, you haven't verified, you just share thinking that you want to get engagement on social media, but at the end of the day, it is frowned upon by our laws, So yes, certainly it is frowned upon. And for us in Ghana, usually we tend to see people sharing leaks, sex tapes, and all of that. Sharing that is an offense. Okay, sharing that is an offense because you are aiding and abetting another person to promote to share false information, and certainly it is criminalized under our laws.
Okay, thank you very much, lawyer. Dr. Blessing, Miss Abigail, do you have any response to this question? Is there any punishment for those who share fake news?
No, I think the lawyer said it. I just also want to say that I think for online platforms, it could actually, for especially some of the larger platforms that actually have policies around these things, it could result in you getting blocked or getting kicked off the platform. So that's also very important. And I think that's something that a lot more platforms should do, because sometimes the algorithm actually, since with they're structured in a way to get more engagement. Sometimes it really amplifies a lot of these things because a lot of disinformation is also like sensational news. So like the more people see, the more like it spreads very quickly and gets more people on the platform or people's attention on the platform. But I think a lot more, like I think even the lawyer mentioned, like on X, for example, they've been doing like community notes where doing kind of like a crowdsource way of fact checking, which I think I don't know how well that has been working, if that's been working very efficiently, especially for content in our region. I think, especially maybe for like in Western countries, or especially in the US, I think it probably works well. I know like Meta would, kind of like downvote certain content and not make it very visible, or instead of maybe downright like removing such content, or actually adding maybe like a note there, because some platforms actually have like fact checking networks. So then, and flagging that as like, even if people are still able to see it on the platform, it will show it as like they're not, this has been proven to be wrong or something like that, just for awareness. But yeah, normally the people, kind of like the perpetrators in the scenarios, to get blocked or locked out of their accounts, or warned or suspended. And I think those are some of the ways to, at least some of the punishments online.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Blessing. Dr. Blessing, please, is there anything you want to add up to the answers that our panelists have already shared? Okay, so I can see raise hand up. Please, you can ask your question. You can unmute yourself as well.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Raymond. I'd first like to thank all the speakers for sharing such an insightful perspective on this critical topic. I joined the meeting a bit late, so I'm not too sure if some of these questions were already asked or addressed. But my first question is there any AI or machine learning tool that can detect and combat like this information, particularly during high-stake social media campaigns? And then my second question is, as a social media marketer myself, I'd like to ask, when this information is directly targeted towards brands or organization, what are some of the best practices or approaches that we can use to debunk or counter it without like escalating the issue or giving it more visibility? Hello?
Yes, please. So you asked
Yeah.
2 questions, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so lawyer, Miss Blessing, and Miss Abigail, whoever wants to take it, we are here for you.
So, Ray, thank you for your question. For AI tools, I'm not so familiar with AI tools, but I'm sure there are a lot which can assist to detect and but then there are some other fact checking tools like Snoops. It's a website, snoops.com. You can go there to check, verify the authenticity of messages. There's factcheck.org. There's politifact.com. Then the AFP also has a fact checking platform that you can check. But for AI, I think a little research can come up with some AI tools which can help to do this. In terms of best practices, I think immediately once you come across any false information regarding a particular brand, it is important that you immediately come out with a statement to draw the public's attention to the fact that the message being disseminated on social media concerning your brand is false. Okay. And then report that post to the appropriate authorities immediately. You can report directly also to the platform. They have reporting mechanisms. So all of them, from Facebook to X to Instagram, YouTube, they all have reporting reports that particular user is using their platform to tarnish the image of your brand, so that they will take either they will block the person or they'll suspend the account. So there are reporting mechanisms in place. You can also report to law enforcement agencies to deal with the person. You can also engage a lawyer to write and demand a retraction of the post, an apology, get some compensation in place. So yeah, it's there are many things you can do. That's the bottom line. Okay. To get those involved punished, and then there's also room to get some compensation for tarnishing the image of your brand. For us, we tend to look at it as defamation. Okay, that a brand that you have spent so much time and resources to build, someone is trying to use a social media account to defame you, so you can take the necessary legal steps to remedy the situation. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Okay, Miss Abigail, do you have anything that you can also add to what Lawyer Kwesi Nyako has just stated?
No, I think those are I have similar thoughts. I shared some tools here. I think you also some of like the websites and even I think in Ghana there's because Media Foundation for West Africa there's tool. I think it's fact checking Ghana. Actually, I'll try and find one.
Yes. Fact check
Yeah,
GH. Yes, fact
uh-huh.
check GH. Yeah.
Which I think
Yeah.
is that's very more specific to
And also the fourth estate in Ghana, the fourth estate, they also do some fact checking, for on social media. Yeah. So you
okay,
can report to them. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think like definitely as you as an individual, like doing your fact checking, and if it looks suspicious, reporting. I think like lawyer because on the platform side, a lot of platforms have these policies and will have like a workflow or some to reports, and I think that's actually one of like if I think that should maybe probably be a first thing to report because that really helps reduce visibility if you're able to get response quickly, to reduce the visibility of it and not let it like spread or not a lot more people like see it online. But also like, if you can respond to it or like write a comment or something, it does more, on the individual level. But yeah, I think all of it has been said already.
Okay, thank you all very much. Okay, so Dr. Blessing said she's having some challenges with her network. Okay, that's fine, Dr. Blessing. Thank you so much for letting us know too. Are there any other questions? We'll have a peace talk from Prince Charles and another person yet to take their details. And please, are there any other questions before we move on to the peace talk? Then we'll end it for today. Are there any other questions? Okay. So if there are any, as you think about, you can text it. So we are going to take a peace talk from Prince Charles. And please, if you are ready, you can just go on. So he is with the New Patriotic Party, if I'm right. Okay, so Prince Charles, please, you have 5 minutes to give us a peace talk. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Please kindly notify me if I'm loud and clear.
Yes, please, you can be heard.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate this opportunity. As we discuss this important topic about the misinformation and disinformation being practiced in the country, especially this election season. Okay, this is an important issue that goes beyond the realms of security agents. It's the duty of every citizen, all of us, to report any suspicious gatherings and things that pertaining security. Okay, so I have less to say now, so you go around if I will have something to say later. So I thank all our speakers for giving us those insightful presentation about our topic. You are really doing well. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Prince Charles. So, as our director for policy and research stated, so you can cross-check all our platforms. Ghana Internet Safety Foundation, it has been posted in the chat box. I'll just repost it again. Should you come across any challenges, you can just text us or chat us on any of these social media platforms. Thank you very much, Prince Charles. I believe as you also move into your various parties, you're also going to share all that you have learned here with them, although it may be in such a short period. You can start with your family, the smaller groups you find yourself within. I believe with time, the impact will be great. Thank you so much, Prince Charles. Okay, so please, do we have the Vice President for TAIN here? Do we have the Vice President for TAIN here? Okay, so if we do not, then I think he's in the person of a J Breathful. Please, do we have a J Breathful here? Okay, that is fine. If not, is there any representative from TAIN who was told to give us a peace talk in this webinar? If that person is here, the person can just give us the peace talk. Okay. Thank you very much. So it looks like we are done for today. Even if we have not picked anything from today's session, we now know that the little information we put out there, it just does not go off, but it has impact on how people live their lifestyle, how people vote, and some actions and inactions people involve themselves into just because of the information we shared across without verifying whether they are true or not. So as we end this session, I would like to acknowledge us all for being here. Our guest speakers, Miss Abigail, Lawyer Kwesi Mensah, Dr. Blessing, Miss Lucia. Thank you so much all for making time for this. Prince Charles and all the representatives from TAIN, TESCOM, NPP and NDC. Thank you all so much for being here. We believe this will not be the last time we'll have this. We'll continue to do that as we, as a foundation, Ghana Internet Safety Foundation, we look forward to making the internet a safer place, which is a better place for everybody to also leverage the potential that comes with this era of digital transformation. Thank you all so much once again. Please do well to enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you all so much.